"It's so big, but I embrace it," she whispered. The cowboy claimed the Apache woman. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long, warm shadows across the dry plains of Arizona. The air was heavy with the scent of dust and sagebrush, and the quiet hum of cicadas filled the silence between the mountains. A young Apache woman named Ayanna moved steadily along the narrow path leading from her small homestead to the nearby creek. Her hands were raw from lifting buckets of water earlier in the day, and her feet ached from walking the rocky terrain. Even so, she kept her head high, determined to finish her chores before nightfall. Life had not been easy for Ayanna. After the passing of her parents, the responsibility of maintaining the homestead fell squarely on her shoulders. She had learned to tend the small garden that provided vegetables for her meals, to care for a few chickens and goats, and to repair the modest wooden fences that kept her animals from wandering into the open plains. Every day was a test of strength, patience, and resilience, yet she faced it with quiet courage. On this particular afternoon, she carried a heavy bundle of firewood back from a nearby grove. The weight pressed against her shoulders, and sweat ran down her face, sticking strands of hair to her forehead. The sun beat down relentlessly, making her long for the shade of the cottonwood trees by the creek. She paused for a moment to catch her breath, letting her eyes wander over the endless stretches of golden grass. It was beautiful in its own harsh way, but sometimes it felt lonely. As she adjusted the firewood on her back, she heard the sound of hooves clattering against the hard ground. Startled, she turned her head, expecting perhaps a horse from a neighboring homestead or a passing traveler. Instead, a tall, rugged cowboy rode slowly down the path. His boots rested confidently in the stirrups, and his wide-brimmed hat shielded his face from the glaring sun. The horse's coat glistened in the afternoon light, a sign of careful grooming and strong care. The cowboy's eyes met Ayanna's for the briefest moment. There was a flicker of recognition, an unspoken understanding between two people from very different worlds. She felt her heart beat a little faster, though she could not explain why. The cowboy slowed his horse to a gentle trot as he approached her, giving her room to continue on her path without interference. "Need some help with that?" he asked, in a voice deep and calm, carrying the warmth of genuine concern. Ayanna's first instinct was to shake her head. She had learned to rely on herself and had grown wary of strangers, especially men who often offered help with hidden motives. But something about his tone, sincere and steady, made her pause. She looked down at the heavy bundle of firewood resting unevenly on her shoulders, then back at him. I can manage," she replied softly, though her voice trembled slightly. The cowboy nodded as if he understood her pride and hesitation. "I won't take it from you, just thought I could offer a hand," he said, tipping his hat in a gesture that felt more polite than formal. Ayanna studied him for a moment. There was no rush, no sense of judgment, just quiet presence. She took a deep breath and nodded. "All right," she said, setting the firewood down on the ground. The cowboy dismounted smoothly, his movements confident yet careful not to startle her. He lifted half the bundle without struggle, his strong hands easily taking the weight she had been carrying. They walked side by side toward her homestead, the bundle of firewood between them. Ayanna found herself relaxing, noticing small details about him, the way his eyes crinkled at the edges when he smiled, the careful way he placed each footstep to avoid rocks, and the gentle hum of his horse trailing behind. She realized she had not spoken to anyone in hours, and somehow, just having him nearby made the work seem lighter. "What brings you out this way?" she asked, curiosity creeping into her voice. "I'm checking on my herd," he replied. "Got a few cattle grazing further down the plains. Thought I'd take the long way back." He paused, glancing at her with a faint smile. "Looks like you've been busy yourself." "It's nothing unusual. The land doesn't take care of itself." The cowboy nodded. "True enough. You handle it well, though. Not everyone could manage all this alone." His words were simple, but they carried a kind of respect that made Ayanna's chest swell with a mix of pride and surprise. She had grown used to doing things on her own, to feeling unseen and unappreciated. Hearing him acknowledge her efforts felt strange, but welcome. For the next hour, they worked together, stacking firewood neatly near the small cabin. They spoke in quiet conversation, exchanging stories about the land, the animals, and the weather. Cole... She learned his name was Cole, asked questions without prying, genuinely interested in her responses. Ayanna found herself laughing quietly at some of his dry humor, feeling a lightness she had not felt in months. When the last piece of firewood was stacked, they both stood back to admire the work. The pile was solid and neatly arranged, ready to keep her warm during the cool desert nights. Cole wiped his hands on his trousers, turning to her with a thoughtful expression. "You know," he said, "you're stronger than most folks I've met." Not just with your hands, but with everything. Your spirit, I mean. Ayana felt a blush rise to her cheeks. She was not used to compliments, especially from strangers. I do what I have to, she murmured. Cole's eyes softened. I can tell, but that doesn't mean it goes unnoticed. There was a sincerity in his tone that made her heart flutter, though she tried to hide it. As the sun dipped lower behind the hills, casting the world in shades of orange and pink, Cole prepared to leave. He mounted his horse, giving Ayana a respectful nod. I'll be around, he said, if you need anything, or just someone to talk to. Ayana watched him ride away, feeling a strange mixture of excitement and unease. She had lived a life of solitude, and the idea of someone caring enough to offer help was unfamiliar. Yet there was a spark of hope that warmed her chest, a feeling she hadn't realized she missed so deeply. As night approached, she tended to her garden one last time before retreating into the small cabin. The firewood was stacked, the animals were safe, and the chores were done. But her mind kept wandering back to the tall cowboy with kind eyes and a gentle voice. She wondered if their paths would cross again, if he would truly return, or if he was just a fleeting moment in her lonely life. Despite the uncertainty, one thing was clear. Something had shifted. For the first time in a long while, Ayana felt seen. Not just for what she did, but for who she was. And as she lay down to sleep that night, listening to the quiet desert sounds, she allowed herself to imagine a future where she was not entirely alone, where someone like Cole could share the burdens of her world, even if only in small ways. That night, under the vast Arizona sky sprinkled with stars, a seed of connection was planted, one that would grow slowly, carefully, and perhaps change both their lives forever. The days passed slowly across the sun-baked plains. Ayana went about her chores with the same quiet determination she always had, but the memory of the tall cowboy lingered in her thoughts. She found herself glancing down the path more often than usual, hoping, without really admitting it, that he might appear again. The chores remained the same: tending the small garden, feeding the chickens, collecting water from the creek, and repairing the worn fences. Yet somehow, these tasks felt lighter when she remembered his calm voice and kind eyes. It was a few days after their first meeting that Cole returned. This time he came not just as a passerby, but with a purpose that made Ayana's heart skip a beat. He rode slowly, careful not to startle the goats grazing near the cabin, and dismounted with the same easy grace she had noticed before. "Good afternoon, Ayana," he called, his voice carrying across the open field. Ayana looked up from the small patch of herbs she was tending. She had not expected him so soon and felt a flicker of nervousness, yet the sight of him made her smile. "Hello, Cole," she said softly, her voice carrying a mix of surprise and warmth. "I thought I'd check on you," he said, tying his horse to a nearby post. "See how you're doing with everything." "I'm managing as usual," she replied, though she secretly appreciated his concern. Cole's eyes scanned the land, taking in the small garden, the wooden fence, and the modest cabin. "You've done a good job here," he said. "It looks well kept, stronger than I expected." Ayana lowered her gaze but felt a small swell of pride. Compliments were rare in her life, and hearing him acknowledge her hard work made her feel valued in a way she had not experienced before. "Thank you," she murmured. Cole smiled, then gestured toward the fence that had recently shown signs of wear. "Mind if I help with that?" Ayana hesitated. She had grown used to handling things herself and feared relying on someone else, but his tone was gentle, without any hint of condescension. "All right," she said after a moment, "if you don't mind." For the next hour, they worked together. Cole held posts steady while Ayana hammered them into place, and sometimes she would hand him nails or tools with a quiet word of thanks. The air between them was easy, filled with small laughs and shared glances. He asked her about the garden, the animals, and the routine she followed, not as a stranger, but with a genuine interest that made her feel seen. "You really know what you're doing," Cole said, stepping back to admire the freshly repaired fence. "Not just the work itself, but how to keep everything running smoothly." "I have to," she said simply. "No one else is here to do it." Still, it's impressive. Most folks would get tired, frustrated, or just give up. For a moment, she let herself relax, enjoying the rare feeling of companionship. There was something comforting about his presence, a sense that the burdens of her life didn't have to be carried entirely alone. After finishing the fence, Cole suggested they rest by the creek. The sun had started its slow descent, painting the sky in soft oranges and purples. Ayana agreed, grateful for the chance to sit and breathe after a long day. They settled on a flat rock near the water, listening to the gentle rush of the stream. "I never really had someone to talk to like this," Ayana said after a long silence. "Most people just come and go or judge me without knowing me. Cole looked at her, his eyes kind and understanding. "I'm glad I'm not most people," he said softly. "You shouldn't have to face everything alone." She looked down, feeling a mix of emotions: relief, surprise, and a hint of longing. "It's nice," she admitted, "having someone who listens." They spoke more as the sky darkened, sharing stories of their lives. Ayanna told him about her parents, about how she learned to survive and care for the homestead, and about the small joys she found in daily life. Cole shared stories of riding across the plains, tending cattle, and the challenges of living a life so connected to the land. The more they talked, the more Ayanna realized how much she enjoyed his company. There was a calm strength about him, a patience that made her feel safe, even when speaking of hardships. Over the following weeks, Cole returned often. Sometimes he brought small gifts: a bag of flour, a fresh loaf of bread, or a few vegetables from his own garden. Other times he simply spent time helping her with work, mending fences, tending animals, or collecting water. Ayanna began to look forward to these visits, feeling anticipation and excitement she hadn't felt in a long time. Their connection grew quietly, without rush or pressure. Ayanna began to trust him, sharing thoughts and feelings she rarely voiced to anyone else. She spoke of her fears about being alone, about managing the homestead, and about the loneliness that had filled her days. Cole listened patiently, offering gentle reassurance and quiet encouragement. "You're stronger than you think," he told her one evening as they repaired a small section of the fence. "But it's okay to accept help. It doesn't make you weak. It makes you human." Ayanna considered his words carefully. She had always believed she had to manage everything alone, that asking for help was a sign of failure. Yet, with Cole, it felt different. Accepting his help didn't diminish her strength. It enhanced it, allowed her to face challenges more fully, and even brought moments of joy she had forgotten existed. One afternoon, as they rested under the shade of a large mesquite tree, Cole noticed Ayanna struggling to balance a basket of harvested vegetables. Without a word, he took the basket from her, carrying it gently back to the cabin. "Thank you," she said softly, her voice filled with quiet gratitude. Cole shrugged, smiling. "It's no trouble. I like helping you." Ayanna looked at him, a blush rising to her cheeks. She had not realized how much she appreciated his presence, how much she looked forward to his visits. There was a warmth in her chest, a feeling that perhaps she could trust someone fully, that someone could care for her without expecting anything in return. Morning chores, midday tasks, and evening conversations by the creek. Each day, Ayanna felt herself opening more, revealing parts of her life and heart she had kept hidden. And each day, Cole remained patient and attentive, never rushing, never judging. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the plains in soft shades of gold and purple, Cole and Ayanna sat quietly on the porch of her cabin. The air was warm but calm, carrying the faint scent of sage and dry earth. "You've changed my days," Ayanna said, after a long pause. "I used to feel so alone, but now it feels like there's someone beside me, even in the hardest times." Cole reached out and gently touched her hand. "I feel the same. You've shown me something I didn't know I needed: patience, strength, and a quiet courage that's inspiring." Ayanna looked into his eyes, feeling a connection that went beyond words. She realized that the bond they were forming was not just about work or companionship. It was about understanding, respect, and something deeper, an unspoken affection growing with each shared moment. Though neither of them spoke of love yet, it was present in the small gestures, the shared laughter, the quiet support, the gentle reassurances, and the way they looked out for each other. Ayanna began to believe that perhaps life did not have to be a solitary struggle, that someone could truly care for her without judgment or expectation. As night settled over the plains, stars scattered across the vast sky, Ayanna felt a sense of peace she hadn't known in years. She closed her eyes for a moment, listening to the gentle hum of the night, the distant call of an owl, the rustle of leaves in the breeze, and the quiet presence of Cole nearby. Something had shifted in her life. A seed of trust and connection had been planted, growing slowly but surely with each passing day. And though the future was uncertain, Ayanna felt hope stirring within her, a hope that perhaps, in this wide, lonely world, she had found someone who would walk beside her, not just for a moment, but for a lifetime. The days of peaceful work and quiet companionship between Ayanna and Cole did not last forever. Word spreads quickly in small settlements, and soon enough, whispers and cautious glances began to reach Ayanna's ears. Some neighbors watched her closely as she worked in her garden, muttering to one another about the unusual friendship between the young Apache woman and the cowboy who frequently visited her. At first, Ayanna tried to ignore it. She had faced judgment before and had learned that pretending not to notice was often the simplest defense. Yet, the whispers carried a sharper sting this time. It was not just casual curiosity. There was suspicion and disapproval, as if her choice to accept help or to smile in the presence of a cowboy was somehow wrong. Cole noticed it too. One afternoon, as they repaired a section of the fence together, he paused and glanced toward the nearby settlement. "I can see them watching," he said quietly, his jaw tightening slightly. "People can be quick to judge what they don't understand." Ayanna's hands froze mid-motion. I know," she murmured. They've always looked at me differently, but this feels worse somehow." Cole placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Ignore them. We know the truth, and that's all that matters." She appreciated his words, but they did little to ease the ache of self-doubt creeping into her heart. Ayanna had spent much of her life striving to prove herself, not just in her work but in her worth as a person. The murmurs of disapproval felt like a reminder of her past struggles, of moments when she had been dismissed or overlooked. As the sun set that evening, painting the sky in hues of pink and gold, Ayanna found herself walking alone toward the creek. Cole had gone to check on his herd, leaving her with quiet thoughts. She knelt by the water, letting her fingers trail through the cool stream, trying to wash away the lingering weight of the day. "Why does it matter so much what others think?" she whispered to herself. "Why can't I just live my life?" The words floated into the evening air, carried away by the gentle breeze, but the questions remained. Ayanna understood that prejudice was nothing new, yet she had hoped that, in this connection with Cole, she would find a space free from judgment. The reality was that the world was rarely so kind, and even the strongest hearts could feel the sting of criticism. When Cole returned, he noticed her pensive expression. "Hey," he said softly, kneeling beside her. "Are you all right?" Ayanna sighed, looking down at the flowing water. "I don't know. I'm tired of being watched, judged, like my life doesn't belong to me." Cole nodded, understanding the weight of her words. "I know it's hard. People will talk no matter what, but that doesn't change who you are or what we share. You are strong, capable, and worthy of respect, even if others fail to see it." Her eyes met his, and for a moment, the tension in her chest eased. Cole's presence had a calming effect, as if he could absorb the weight of her fears and hold them gently, making the burden lighter. I want to believe that," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "You can. And I'll be here to remind you every day if you need it." The days that followed were filled with small acts of courage. Ayanna began to accept Cole's help more freely, understanding that asking for support did not diminish her strength. Together they mended fences, tended the animals, and worked the garden. But the glances from neighbors and the occasional whispered remark reminded Ayanna that the world outside her homestead was not always welcoming. One afternoon, while they were gathering firewood, a group of townspeople approached. Their expressions were a mixture of curiosity and disapproval. One older man with a stern face and weathered hands spoke first. "You shouldn't be letting him help you," he said, his voice low but firm. "It's unusual. Not proper for a young woman to rely on a man like that." Ayanna's heart pounded in her chest, but she stood tall, meeting his gaze with quiet strength. "I am grateful for his help," she said calmly. "It does not make me less capable." Cole stepped forward, placing himself slightly between Ayanna and the group. "She is capable, and she makes her own choices," he said firmly. "Your opinions don't change that." The group murmured among themselves, unsure how to respond to Cole's clear defense. After a tense moment, they muttered some parting words and left, leaving Ayanna and Cole alone once more. She exhaled slowly, feeling relief wash over her, but also a lingering ache. The encounter reminded her that prejudice could appear even in seemingly small communities, and that strength alone was not always enough to protect her from judgment. Later that evening, as they sat by the creek sharing a simple meal, Ayanna finally voiced the fear that had been gnawing at her heart. "Cole, what if people never accept this?" she asked quietly. "What if we are always seen as different or wrong?" Cole reached across the small blanket, taking her hand in his. "Then we keep going," he said. "We don't let them decide who we are or how we feel. We know the truth of our hearts, and that's what matters. We face the world together, not alone." Her eyes filled with tears, but this time they were tears of understanding, not fear. She realized that love, trust, and respect were stronger than judgment, and that Cole's unwavering support gave her courage she had not known she possessed. Over the next several weeks, their bond deepened. Ayana began to laugh more freely, to share her thoughts and dreams without fear of ridicule. Cole, in turn, continued to show patience and care, offering not just physical help, but emotional support as well. Small gestures, like bringing fresh bread, helping mend a broken wheel, or simply sitting with her in silence, became powerful symbols of trust and connection. Yet even as their relationship grew, the shadow of doubt from outside eyes remained. Ayana could not ignore the occasional sneer or whispered remark when she ventured into town, and Cole noticed the cautious glances from neighbors who had never met him before. These moments were small, but they reminded both of them that their bond existed in a world that often misunderstood what they shared. One evening, after a long day of tending the garden and caring for animals, Ayana and Cole sat together under the stars. The cool night air carried the scent of sage and dry earth, and the sounds of the plains, crickets, rustling leaves, and distant calls of night birds provided a gentle backdrop to their conversation. "I used to believe that I had to face everything alone," Ayana said softly, her voice carrying both sorrow and hope. That asking for help would make me weak. Cole shook his head gently. "No. Accepting help, trusting someone, that is strength. It takes courage to let someone in, to share your burdens." Ayana looked at him, her heart full. "And you? You've shown me that courage isn't just mine alone? That I don't have to be alone to be strong." Cole smiled, squeezing her hand gently. "Exactly. We are stronger together. And nothing anyone says can change that." The night grew deeper, and Ayana felt a sense of peace. Though the world outside was not always kind, she knew that the bond she shared with Cole could weather any storm. Their connection was built on respect, trust, and understanding, and it was strong enough to face doubt, gossip, and prejudice. Over time, they learned to navigate the small challenges of daily life together. Cole's presence became a source of comfort, and Ayana's strength inspired him in return. They laughed, worked, and shared stories of the past and hopes for the future. Each day they grew more confident in their bond, more certain that their connection was something rare and valuable. And though they knew challenges would continue to appear from neighbors, from tradition, and from the narrow judgments of a small community, they faced them side by side, knowing that together they could withstand the weight of the world. By the end of Part 3, Ayana and Cole's bond had survived its first true test. Outside pressures and whispers of disapproval had not broken their trust or their growing affection. If anything, these challenges had made their connection stronger, teaching them patience, resilience, and the power of standing together against the doubts of the world. The days had grown longer, and the warmth of early autumn spread across the plains. The air was softer now, carrying the faint scent of dry grass and distant wood smoke. Ayana and Cole had spent countless days together tending the homestead, mending fences, caring for animals, and sharing simple meals. Their companionship had become something steady, a quiet rhythm that filled the empty spaces of their lives with trust and laughter. Yet beneath that routine, a deeper feeling was growing, a bond neither could ignore, a warmth neither could fully name. One evening as the sun sank low in the sky, painting the world in shades of orange and crimson, Cole suggested they take a walk to the ridge overlooking the plains. The idea was simple, yet it carried a sense of intimacy, a chance to step away from chores and responsibilities and just exist together. Ayana agreed, feeling a mixture of excitement and nervous anticipation. The walk was quiet at first, their boots crunching softly on the dry grass. A gentle breeze rustled the leaves of nearby trees, carrying the soft hum of insects settling for the night. The sky above them was vast and open, and the fading light cast long shadows across the rolling hills. Cole broke the silence gently. "I like these moments," he said. "Just walking, talking, and watching the sun go down. Nothing else matters but right now." Ayana nodded, her eyes fixed on the horizon. "It feels peaceful," she admitted softly. "Almost like the world has stopped, and it's just us." Cole smiled, his gaze lingering on her face. There was something in the way the fading sunlight caught her features, the way her hair fell in soft waves, the quiet determination in her eyes, the hint of vulnerability she tried to hide. He felt a swell of admiration and affection, emotions he had not expected but could no longer ignore. When they reached the ridge, they stopped, taking in the breathtaking view. The plains stretched endlessly before them, golden and vast, dotted with the occasional tree or distant herd of cattle. Cole leaned against a large rock, and Ayana sat beside him, letting the gentle breeze cool her warm cheeks. "I've been meaning to tell you something," Cole said, his voice quiet but steady. He looked out over the plains for a moment before turning his gaze back to her. something important. Ayana's heart skipped a beat. She could feel the seriousness in his tone, the weight of the moment. "What is it?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Cole took a deep breath, as if gathering his courage. I admire you, Ayana, not just for the work you do or the way you handle life, but for who you are. Your strength, your kindness, your spirit, it's unlike anyone I've ever met. Ayana felt a warmth rise in her chest, a mixture of joy and disbelief. She had longed for someone to see her for more than just her daily efforts, to understand her heart and mind. And here was Cole, speaking words that mirrored the quiet feelings she had been nurturing for weeks. I don't know what to say, she admitted, her voice trembling slightly. I've never felt like someone could see me like that. Cole reached out, taking her hand in his. His touch was gentle, reassuring. You don't have to say anything, he said softly. I just wanted you to know how I feel. You deserve to be seen, truly seen, for everything you are. Ayana looked down at their joined hands, feeling the strength in his grip, the warmth of his skin against hers. For a long moment she allowed herself to simply feel, to absorb the truth of his words. Then, with a quiet exhale, she whispered, It's so big, but I embrace it. Cole's eyes softened and a gentle smile spread across his face. You mean that? He asked, his voice filled with hope. Ayana nodded, meeting his gaze. Yes, she said. I feel the same. I was afraid to let someone in, to trust, but with you, it feels right. It feels safe. In that moment, the world seemed to pause. The wind whispered softly through the grass. The sun dipped lower behind the distant hills, and the bond between them deepened in a way that words could barely capture. Cole squeezed her hand gently, feeling a sense of gratitude and wonder. He had never imagined that someone like Ayana could enter his life and change it so completely. They stayed on the ridge long after the sun had disappeared, the sky now painted with stars. The quiet was comforting, filled with an unspoken understanding and the gentle rhythm of their breathing. Ayana felt a sense of peace she had never known, a feeling that someone truly cared for her, not for what she could do, but for who she was. Over the following days, their connection grew even stronger. Small gestures carried immense meaning. Cole would bring her fresh water after a long day in the sun, help her gather firewood, or simply sit with her on the porch while she worked. Ayana, in turn, found herself sharing her thoughts more openly, telling him about her dreams, her fears, and the small moments of joy she discovered in everyday life. One afternoon, as they repaired a broken section of the fence together, Cole paused and looked at her with a thoughtful expression. You know, he said, I've always admired how you handle everything, but now I admire you even more. For letting me in, for trusting me. That takes courage, too. Ayana felt a blush rise to her cheeks. I've learned it's not weakness to accept help, she said softly. Sometimes it's the bravest thing you can do. Exactly, and I'm honored you trust me. Their days continued in this gentle rhythm of work and companionship, each moment reinforcing their growing affection. Yet beneath the surface, they both knew that expressing their feelings fully required courage. Ayana had her fears of judgment and rejection, while Cole had his own concerns about the world's opinions and the challenges they might face together. One evening, as the sky turned a deep shade of indigo and the first stars appeared, Cole invited Ayana to sit by the creek with him. They spread a small blanket on the grass, sharing a simple meal of bread and roasted vegetables. The water reflected the stars above, creating a magical, quiet world of their own. I want you to know something else, Cole said, his voice soft but steady. I'm not here just for today, or for the work we share. I want to be part of your life. I want to be someone you can rely on, someone who stands beside you no matter what. Ayana's eyes widened and her heart raced. She had felt the depth of his care, the warmth of his presence, but hearing him say it aloud brought a mix of joy and fear. I don't know what to say, she whispered. You don't have to say anything, Cole replied gently. Just know that I mean it. I choose you, Ayana, not because I have to, but because I want to. Because you are extraordinary, and I want to be with you. Tears welled in Ayana's eyes, tears of relief, gratitude, and love. She had longed for someone who could see her, truly see her, and now she realized she had found that person. She took a deep breath, finding the courage in her own heart, and whispered, And I choose you too. Cole's smile was radiant, filled with emotion he could hardly contain. He reached out and gently held her face in his hands, gazing into her eyes with tenderness and devotion. "You have no idea how happy that makes me," he said softly. They sat there in silence for a while, letting the weight of their words settle between them. The world around them, the creek, the grass, the distant hills, felt like a witness to their quiet, powerful bond. In that moment there was no fear, no judgment, only the truth of their hearts and the strength of their connection. Over the next few days, their relationship blossomed naturally. They worked together, laughed together, and shared quiet moments that deepened their understanding of one another. Ayana felt herself opening more, allowing herself to fully experience the warmth of love and trust. Cole, in turn, showed unwavering patience and care, proving that his commitment was not fleeting but genuine. One evening, as they watched the sun set from the ridge once more, Ayana rested her head on Cole's shoulder. "I never thought I'd find someone who sees me," she said softly. "Someone who truly understands me." Cole wrapped his arm around her gently. "You deserve it," he said. "You deserve to be seen, loved, and cherished, and I will spend every day showing you that." The stars began to twinkle above, the world quiet and still. Ayana felt a deep sense of peace and belonging, a certainty that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. Their hearts had spoken, their feelings were shared, and a bond that would endure had been formed. Strong, honest, and filled with hope. And in that quiet moment, under the vast Arizona sky, Ayana realized that love could be both gentle and powerful, that trust could be a shield against the world's doubts, and that with the right person beside her, she could embrace life fully. With courage and joy, their bond, once quiet and tentative, now had a clear purpose. They were partners, sharing not only work and responsibilities, but their hearts and hopes. The plains of Arizona, with their harsh sunlight and endless stretches of golden grass, had never felt more alive. Each day carried both the challenge of survival and the joy of shared life, a balance that strengthened their connection. The mornings began early, with the sun casting a warm glow across the homestead. Ayana would rise and tend the garden, watering the vegetables and herbs, while the dew still clung to the leaves. Cole, on his part, would check the horses and cattle, ensuring the herd was healthy and the fences held strong. Their work was simple but demanding, yet together it felt lighter, more purposeful. There was an ease in the way they moved around each other, passing tools, offering a helping hand, or sharing a quiet laugh as they worked side by side. Over time, the small homestead transformed. The fences were sturdier, the garden flourished, and the cabin became a warm and inviting place, filled with signs of their shared life. Cole built a small loft where they could store extra supplies, and Ayana planted flowers near the entrance, bringing color and life to the simple structure. Each improvement was a symbol of their cooperation and growing commitment, a physical manifestation of the love that bound them. Evenings were perhaps the most cherished part of their day. After the sun sank below the horizon, they would sit together by the creek, sharing meals, stories, and quiet moments. They spoke of their dreams for the future, imagining a life where they could live freely, surrounded by the beauty of the land and the comfort of each other's presence. Cole would sometimes play a simple tune on a small wooden flute he carried, the music drifting across the water and blending with the sounds of the desert night. Ayana would hum along softly, her voice blending with his, creating a harmony that seemed to belong to the land itself. Yet life was not without challenges, neighbors still whispered, and occasionally visitors to the settlement would stare at the unusual pairing of the cowboy and the Apache woman. But these moments, once daunting, no longer carried the same weight. Together, Ayana and Cole had built a shield of trust and mutual respect, a bond strong enough to withstand judgment. They faced the world with quiet confidence, knowing that the truth of their hearts was more important than the opinions of others. One day, a traveling merchant came through the settlement, bringing news of nearby towns and offering goods for trade. He stopped by their homestead, curious about the couple who seemed so devoted to each other and to the land. "You two make quite the team," he said, smiling as he looked around. "I've never seen a pair work together so well." We do what we must," she said humbly. Cole chuckled softly. "We do it together. That makes all the difference." The merchant nodded, impressed, and moved on, leaving them in the quiet comfort of their shared space. It was a small moment, but it reminded Ayana of how far they had come, from cautious strangers to partners in every sense. As the seasons changed, the bond between them deepened even further. They celebrated small victories: the harvest of the garden, the birth of a new foal in the herd, the repair of a long-neglected fence, and comforted each other through difficulties, like unexpected storms or illness in the animals. Each challenge reinforced their reliance on one another, teaching them patience, understanding, and the quiet power of shared effort. One evening, after a long day of work, Cole and Ayana sat on the porch of the cabin, watching the sunset over the plains. The sky was painted with deep oranges and soft purples, the last light glinting off the distant mountains. Ayana rested her head against Cole's shoulder, feeling the steady warmth of his presence. "I never imagined life could feel like this," she said softly. "Full, peaceful, and yet exciting in ways I never expected." Cole kissed the top of her head gently. "That's what love does," he said. "It turns everyday life into something extraordinary. And you've made it extraordinary for me." Ayana smiled, a feeling of contentment spreading through her chest. She realized that true happiness was not about grandeur or recognition, but about the quiet moments shared with someone who truly cared, someone who understood and supported you without condition. Over the years, their partnership became a source of inspiration for others in the settlement. People began to see that love could bridge differences, that respect and trust were more powerful than prejudice, and that strength could come in many forms. Children would sometimes run by the homestead, watching the couple work together, learning the value of cooperation and mutual respect. Neighbors who once whispered now offered greetings and assistance, recognizing the example set by Cole and Ayana's enduring bond. As time passed, Ayana and Cole faced new joys. Their shared life brought opportunities to nurture not only the land, but also each other's dreams. Cole taught Ayana more about riding and managing the herd, while Ayana shared her knowledge of the land and its rhythms, teaching him to notice small signs in nature that indicated changes in weather or the needs of the animals. Together they grew wiser, more capable, and more attuned to the world around them. One afternoon as they worked in the garden, Cole paused and looked at Ayana with a gentle expression. "You know," he said, "I never thought I'd find someone who could change my life this way. You've shown me patience, courage, and a kind of love I didn't know existed." Ayana blushed, smiling. "And you've shown me trust, support, and the courage to open my heart. I never knew life could feel so complete." Their hands met in a quiet gesture of connection, fingers intertwining naturally. It was a symbol of everything they had built together, a life rooted in respect, affection, and shared purpose. Even the challenges that arose were faced with grace. Harsh weather, difficult neighbors, and the demands of maintaining the homestead could have driven them apart, but instead, these obstacles strengthened their commitment. They learned to communicate without anger, to listen without judgment, and to find solutions together. Each challenge became a lesson in patience, resilience, and the power of partnership. As years passed, their love matured, growing deeper and more enduring. They celebrated milestones quietly but meaningfully. The first harvest together, the repair of a fence after a storm, the arrival of friends and family who came to recognize and respect their bond. Their home became a place of warmth, laughter, and safety, a testament to what could be achieved when two people committed to understanding, supporting, and loving each other fully. One clear night, as the stars spread across the sky like diamonds, Ayana and Cole sat by the creek, their hands clasped together. The world was quiet, and the plains stretched endlessly before them. "I never thought I'd find someone like you," Ayana said softly, her voice filled with gratitude. "Someone who sees me, accepts me, and walks beside me through everything." Cole smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "And I never thought I'd find someone like you," he replied. "But here we are. We've built something real, something lasting, and I'll spend the rest of my days making sure it grows stronger." Ayana rested her head against his shoulder, feeling the steady warmth and strength of his presence. She knew that life would continue to bring challenges, but she also knew that they could face them together. The love they shared had become a foundation, unshakable and enduring, capable of weathering any storm. As the night deepened, they sat in silence, letting the sounds of the plains, the whispering wind, the rustling leaves, the distant calls of nocturnal animals, fill the space around them. It was a quiet, peaceful moment, yet one filled with immense significance. They had found each other, nurtured their bond, and created a life full of trust, respect, and love. And in that quiet night, under the vast Arizona sky, Ayana and Cole understood that the true measure of life was not wealth, power, or recognition, but the ability to share your heart with someone who cherishes it. Their love had transformed not only their lives, but also the lives of those around them, leaving a legacy of courage, patience, and the beauty of embracing someone fully, without fear or hesitation. Their story, simple yet profound, became a symbol of hope for the community, A reminder that love can overcome prejudice, that trust can strengthen bonds, and that a life built together with care and respect can bring joy beyond measure. In the end, Ayana and Cole did not just survive the harsh plains. They thrived, their hearts intertwined, their spirits aligned, and their lives filled with purpose, meaning, and enduring love.